Guess we're making the video. I just have to tell you, our garden turned green overnight. It has rained the past few days and I woke up this morning to see green. It all turned green overnight, like actual magic. My excitement is at 100. It's grass, but I am so happy about it. This is gonna be my own holiday from now on, I think. And I think for me, it will mark the start of spring. Spring is nearly here. It is just around the corner. And I find myself picking up hobbies that feel like something a Bennett sister would spend her days doing. Or reaching for spring books that transport me into a fairy tale of lush gardens or period dramas. And I'm drawn towards items that really help me romanticize my days. I am going to share with you all sorts of different movies, TV shows, items, ways to romanticize spring, mindsets to have. All of that becomes our reality. You can pick and choose the reality that you want to have this spring, and I hope that all of these things that I'm going to recommend can help you create the best reality for yourself during this season. So grab a notebook. You're probably gonna want to take some notes, and let's just dive right in. I feel like I should be putting on glasses. All right, class, chapter 1. These are the items, the physical things that I grab for that help me romanticize my everyday, that really elevate it so it feels a lot more like a Pinterest board, like I am living my dream Pinterest board life. So here are my spring things that I have incorporated that I absolutely am loving. The first one being this 5-minute journal. This print right here, this sparks so much joy when I pick it up first thing in the morning, and I love honing in on that femininity of letting cute things make you happy. I love the way it's set up. It has a section that says I'm grateful for it, then you write 3 things that you're grateful for at the beginning of the day, and then a section that says what would make today great, and you write 3 ways that today would be made great. And then there's a daily affirmation section and you write 2 daily affirmations. And then in the evening, you open it back up again and you write 3 highlights of the day, and then you also write 1 way that you learned something from that day. I use this every single day. Now, waking up in cute pajamas, this has changed my happiness level, it's bumped it up, because cute pajamas completely change the vibe of your morning and evening. I got these from a website called Joe's Lounge. They're a Korean brand. When I wear these, I am in a spring rom-com, like Meg Ryan and You've Got Mail, but make it the spring version. And like this takes me there mentally. When I have these on, I am a different person. You can thrift them. Damson Matter has such cute ones. Some of those are on my wish list. I think it's impossible to wear cute pajamas to bed and wake up in them and just not feel happy. Not to say you can't have bad days in cute pajamas, but if you're gonna have a bad day, might as well have it in cute pajamas. Next is vintage teacups, any kind of teacup. Drinking my morning matcha or water first thing in the morning. And drinking it out of this is so much more fun than drinking it out of a bottle or a mason jar. Still cute, but a teacup for springtime, it just pairs perfectly. I take a lot of supplements, and a lot of them are little tinctures that I have to put into water. I used to do it just in a mason jar until I got these. It's the perfect size for what I call my morning health elixir. Why not pretend that I'm a fantasy girl on a quest and I met this witch who makes me these little concoctions that give me a health boost in the morning? That is what these are for. Cute little glasses to drink your morning supplements or juice or whatever it may be out of. You can add a little spring to your morning. I know a lot of us have become book girlies, book guys in the past couple years, but I think we should all become magazine girlies and guys. We are sleeping on these. Oh my gosh. And now when I go to Barnes & Noble to get my books, I usually grab a magazine as well. Some of my favorites are Daphne's Diary. If you like gingham, floral patterns, journaling, crafts, scrapbooking, this is your magazine. It's full of DIY projects. It comes with cutouts and posters, pictures. Every month is different. So for example, this one has, that didn't sound right. That's so cute. This one's from winter, so this is like a winter poster. But you could use this as a bucket list. You could even write things underneath like try a new tea or embroider socks. Or you could even cut these out and put them in a journal or a scrapbook. It has a coloring page. And then here it has 2 recipe cards that you can tear out and put into a recipe box. How to make DIY seat covers. Love this. Another one that I get a copy of every single time they release a new issue is Enchanted Living. This is their spring 2025 issue. It is their mushroom issue. Like, are you joking? This is incredible. It opens with a photo shoot. There's an ode to foxfire. And then there are mushroom themed cakes and pies, little lavender tea cookies that look like mushrooms. I want to live inside this magazine. The artwork is just breathtaking. Just the most beautiful little odes to springtime. And this one is new to me, but this is Bella Grace. There's different ones that come out. This is the Book of Lists. So it's an entire magazine full, it's essentially full of lists, bucket lists. 100 ways to add magic to your life. 20 of our favorite Anne Shirley quotes. 60 plus traditions to bring back, and then it will include things like writing actual thank you notes instead of emails, or having an old-fashioned pen pal. Or this one, 42 imagined holidays to celebrate. Some of them include Garden Day, a Whimsy Day to celebrate all things beautiful and decadent. This one is cute for parents who have children. I would have a day when my kids could teach adults their favorite hobbies and in process how to have fun. I love spring. Moving my reading location back outside under my favorite tree, taking a walk through the park, listening to Vivaldi's Spring. This is just chock full of spring goodness. Another thing that I have been loving, this has been my main hobby this spring, is fabric bookmarks. You just take a little bit of ribbon, or it could be fabric, and I attach little charms on the ends. You have the prettiest bookmark and then a little charm at the bottom as well. It's like dressing your book up with jewelry. Now, why don't we grab a quick snack in the kitchen, and then I'm going to show you how I make these bookmarks and also tell you about the sponsor of today's video.
Okay, so you know how as adults, oftentimes meeting up with friends usually involves a dinner or grabbing a drink at a cafe or a bookstore. And while I love doing those things, I think this spring I really want to push myself out of my comfort zone, hear me out, and create a little society of whimsical women who go on adventures together. I have so many plans in my head that I think would be so fun for this, and even though it would just be with friends, starting something new is always a bit scary and intimidating, because what if my idea is just ridiculous and no one wants to come frolic with me in the mountains or go on Sense and Sensibility picnics with me? But I find that talking about my insecurities or self-criticism or fear of new things with my therapist is like taking a much needed sigh, a much needed deep breath, and that's where BetterHelp comes in. Releasing all of those thoughts in my head clears away those doubts and leaves me feeling excited about embracing something new rather than fearing the what ifs. BetterHelp makes starting therapy incredibly convenient and accessible. It's an online platform, meaning you can connect with a therapist from the comfort of your own home. Upon filling out a questionnaire, you will be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple days, and you can easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost if the one you're matched with just isn't the right fit. So if you're feeling at all overwhelmed or uncertain about the future as we enter this new season, you can click the link down in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Desi and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
Books are, in my opinion, one of the most utterly whimsical ways to transport you to the English countryside of Jane Austen's stories or the flower fields of Howl's Moving Castle. You can go there via books. These are some of my recommendations to help you do that. This series is like Bridgerton meets Gilmore Girls meets Anne of Green Gables. Without further ado, they are The Selected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower. I need some of you, I need all of you to read these so you can chat with me about them, because I don't have anybody to talk to about these. I think there's 8 volumes. I am on the 3rd one right now. In these, you are reading Emma M. Lyon's journal entries, and she's hilarious. She is a mix between Anne Shirley Cuthbert and Lorelai Gilmore, but set in, I think, the Edwardian period. I read these first thing upon waking up after I drink some water, do a little mind wandering. I pick this up and it sets the tone of my day. I just feel like I'm hanging out with Emma every day, and she is the funniest friend. I want to know all the tea, all the gossip, all the romance. I just can't recommend these enough. And while they are kind of just daily life type entries, there's an overarching story with romance. I love them so much. Please read them so I can talk to you about them. If you like Kate Morton and the story of the Cottingley Fairies, and you like a good story, and I mean that in the way that it pulls your heart in and there is no getting out. There is no thinking about anything else or doing anything else until you get to the end of that story, of the conclusion, and all of the weaving story ribbons come together. And when you close the final page, you really have gone on this journey and you don't know what to do with your life, but in the best way possible. That is The Secret Book of Flora Lee, and this is set during spring. It's about these 2 girls who go away to the countryside during World War II when the children were fleeing London, and they go to stay with a woman that is Miss Honey. If you've seen Matilda and you know Miss Honey, that is the woman that they stay with. She has a son and they become best friends, and their days are full of frolicking by the rivers, living in their own beautiful bubble that they've created to protect themselves from the horror of the war. While they're away, Hazel tells her little sister Flora this story of Whisperwood, land called Whisperwood, that they mentally escape into in the evenings, or whenever Flora is feeling a bit stressed, she'll say, "Take me to Whisperwood," and Flora will tell her this story. And it's full of fairies and magic and adventures, and they tell nobody of Whisperwood. It is only between them. Something tragic happens and Flora goes missing and is assumed to be dead because they've never found her, and that's not a spoiler. Years later, Hazel is working in an antiquarian bookshop, and as she's going through a new incoming box of books, she comes across a book. I don't remember what the title is, but it says something about Whisperwood, and she's like, "Excuse me? What?" And she reads it, and it is her Whisperwood story. She's so confused because Flora is gone and nobody else has ever heard this story. So where did it come from? Who knows their story? Is it possibly Flora out there somewhere? How did this book come into existence? And that's all I'm gonna say. I think this is a book that no matter what type of genre you typically read, there's a high probability that you will really enjoy this. Now, if you're like me and you are a Regency romance girly or guy, I know you guys are here too. I have not just one book recommendation, I have 4 for all different levels of spice and romance. Did I say 4? I think actually it's 5. No matter who you are, I've got one for you. So let's start with my favorite of this year. That is The Rose Bargain. From the very first sentence of this book, I knew it would be a 5-star. This book felt like a fairy tale that will be told years and years and years from now. It had that very classic, timeless feel to it. And one of the best ways I can describe it is like Pride and Prejudice meets The Buccaneers meets The Bachelor meets a fairy tale with high stakes, fae, royalty. There's yearning, there's pining, there is come over late at night and I'll teach you how to dance so that you can impress my brother and win over his heart. But actually while they're dancing, the sparks are flying and the chemistry is there. And he's so gentle with her stepping on his toes and he's the one teaching her to dance, but she's the one teaching him how to make a fire. But I'm sorry, I'll backtrack. So this book takes place in 1848 England and it's set in a world where there are fae and there's like a fae queen, and her version of the London season is all of these girls coming together in their prettiest dresses, think they're going to impress the queen in Bridgerton. We're going to find the diamond of the season. And she does this by making bargains with them. They have to give up something in order to get something in return. So they might give up their ability to turn left for perfectly straight or white teeth. But the events don't just end there. After the bargains have been made, there's a sort of a game, and this is why I said it's like The Bachelor. For example, what's that called where there's a pole and there's ribbons that come around, and like a maypole? They're in all their dresses, in their heels, and they have to run around this maypole for hours until there's only one remaining. Girls are falling down in the mud. It's chaos, it's crazy, and the girl who wins the competition gets to spend an hour with the prince that they're all vying for. And I love a good competition, games, or trials in my books, but they're sewing. And whoever sews the best embroidery wins. But actually, if you poke yourself or if you make a mistake while sewing, you get pricked, and she infuses her magic because she's like a fae queen, and it ends up actually hurting so bad. So the stakes are actually really high. You don't want to fail. I could spend hours just talking about this book. And this is the Fairy Loot edition, which is actually so beautiful underneath. I should show you. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, have I ever seen a more beautiful cover underneath the book? I don't know. And the end papers. That's the scene that I was talking about where he's teaching her how to dance at night and she's in a nightgown. I'll just let these end papers do the talking. They can convince you to read the book. This should be a Disney movie. If you want something YA that is extremely wholesome, zero spice, closed door romance, but it's like The Parent Trap meets The London Season, I cannot recommend The Invention of Sophie Carter enough by Samantha Hastings. This is so cozy and heartwarming. It's about 2 sisters, Sophie and Mariah, who go to stay with their aunt for the London season, but her aunt has told their parents that she can only take one of the sisters. She doesn't have enough room, she doesn't have enough time to dedicate to helping both of them find a match. So they decide to both go, and they are staying in this like attic room in her house. One of them will come downstairs in the morning and they switch out. So their aunt only thinks Sophie is there. But this gets messy when she's trying to find a match for Sophie and Mariah is switching with her constantly at events. Are the men falling in love with Sophie or Mariah? Especially when Mariah has to pretend to be Sophie. But one of them is not there to find a husband. She's more interested in how clocks work and going to the Great Exhibition. So underrated. It really is. It deserves so much more love. If you want another closed door, zero spice historical romance, but you want a bit more pining, you want a bit more pulling at the heartstrings of a feeling while reading it, look no further than Blackmore by Julianne Donaldson. Same author who wrote Edenbrook, which I love, and I know a lot of you love as well. The imagery in this book is beautiful. It is just such a beautiful book. It follows Kate, who knows that she can never marry the man that she loves, so she decides to put her passion of going to India into motion. She has told her mother, this is what I want to do, I'm going to India. But of course her mother has other plans. She decides that Kate can go to India if she spends the season getting at least 3 marriage proposals, and she has to reject all of them. So Kate journeys to this beautiful estate called Blackmore, determined to get these marriage proposals. And of course, she enlists the help of her childhood friend Henry. This is so good, and it's set in the windswept, wild countryside of northern England. Just beautiful, a beautiful story. A step up from that would be Mimi Matthews. If you have not read anything by her, ooh, you are in for a treat. She has a series called the Bells of London series, and this is the Lily of Ludgate Hill, which I think is the 3rd book. I don't actually have the 2nd book with me, but the 2nd book is called The Belle of Belgrave Square, and it is one of my favorite romance books of all time. It includes a tall, dark, brooding captain, the notorious Jasper Blunt. He was a military hero, but his reputation has been a bit tarnished with rumors of a haunted estate and bastard children all throughout the countryside. He requires a rich wife to fix this downfall. Then we have Julia. She is an incurable, hopeless romantic, cursed with crippling social anxiety. Navigating a ballroom during the London season is torturous for her. The only time she ever feels happy and content is when she's on the back of her horse, but she realizes she can't spend her whole life doing that, so she's desperate to just get out of this London season, and she takes her life by the reins and she proposes to this Captain Jasper Blunt in exchange for having her dowry that he very much needed. He's like, you can do whatever you want, spend your days riding your horse, I don't really care, you can read books, I'll be over here doing my stuff, you can do your stuff. The only thing he cares about is that she is not allowed to go in one of the tower rooms in his estate, and she's probably not going to be able to stop herself from snooping a bit. This is a romance book. All of the books in the series are good, but this one is by far my favorite. And lastly, if you want some spice with your historical romance, I haven't finished this, but I'd say it's like a 2 to 3 spice pepper rating for this. It is A Rivalry of Hearts by Tessanja Odette. This is really cool because it follows a writer from modern day London who's on a book tour, but on her book tour she goes to the Fae world and sees like ogres and fairies and magic. She's always known that it existed, but she'd never been there before, which I think is a cool concept. Like, mortal girl goes into Fae. Actually, that's not that cool. That happens all the time. She's a writer. She goes to this Fae world and meets another writer, and they end up going on a book tour together. She writes kind of smutty romance and he writes poetry and real literature. But while they're on this book tour, she realizes that her publisher has this contract coming up and he's either going to choose her or this other author. She really wants it. She'll do anything. So she enters into a bet with this other author, and the terms are whoever can bed the most lovers during their month-long dueling book tour wins this coveted contract. As I'm reading it, it's all pastel, it's dreamy, and it's bright like a Ghibli film. If you do read it, know that I have not completely finished it yet, so I can't give it my full endorsement, but I'm halfway through and really enjoying it. It is definitely perfect for spring. Now, if you're like me and you rewatch the Titanic every spring, I have a book for you. It is called The Secret of Flowers by Sally Page. This is another novel kind of in the vein of Kate Morton and The Secret Book of Flora Lee. It follows dual timelines, one during the year the Titanic set sail and one during modern day. Follow a girl named Emma who lost her husband the year prior and has kind of become a wallflower. She doesn't engage much with society and her friends, and she works as a florist at a garden center. And one day her colleagues invite her to go to a talk being given by a historical society about the Titanic. She ends up not going because social anxiety, she can't get herself to go. But that night she stays home and does some research and is curious about what flowers were on the Titanic. And if there were flowers, there must have been a florist. So she goes through all of these documents and goes to the library, and she can't find anything about a florist on the Titanic, but she knows there must be one because there are photos of flowers on the Titanic. So she kind of does what we do. She goes down this rabbit hole of needing to find out who this florist was. And I love this cover. Oh, Chef's kiss. The last book I have to recommend is The Little Shop of Grand Curiosities by Iris Lake. This is a whimsical romantasy. It has Ghibli vibes, very heavy on like Howl's Moving Castle. Also gives me a little bit feeling of Once Upon a Broken Heart. I'm gonna include some aesthetic photos because that's the feeling this book gives. I'm actually reading it this month with my patrons over in Honeywood Hollow, which is my Patreon community. So this is one that I've still not finished because I am reading it all throughout the month. There's a sentient shop, which made me think a lot of Calcifer and Howl's Moving Castle. It has opinions and it worries about the girl that runs the shop. The opening of the book starts with a quote from Alice in Wonderland, which is very much on point with the vibes and the aesthetic of the book. I have been highlighting away in this book. It's so full of magical goodness. She said that she wanted to write a book that was inspired by two of her favorites, Howl's Moving Castle and Stardust by Neil Gaiman. But as she wrote it, it became less about the fairy tale itself and more about giving a metaphysical nod to adulthood. On the back it says, The Little Shop of Grand Curiosities is a lighthearted fantasy romance about the true meaning of love, the power of empathy, and the unremitting yearning to be extraordinary as an act of rebellion against the mundaneness of the world. That kind of sums up exactly how this book feels. I always think of gardening and the outdoors when I think of springtime. So I think a perfect film to watch during this time of year is Dare to Be Wild. I forget her name, but it follows a girl who enters the Chelsea flower show. And on the phone, the man's like, you sound young, like this is only for professionals. And she's not necessarily a professional, but she has this divine gift. She knows how to build gardens. And her perspective is bringing the wild of nature into the garden and letting it be a place for dreamers and a place to inspire, not to necessarily be a place that is structured and perfect. It's supposed to be wild. But to enter this show, she has to have a lot of funding. So she's trying to prove herself and her abilities. There is romance and ultimately just so many beautiful flowers and gardens. It's a little bit cheesy, but I love cheesy films. A lot of the times they're feel-good films, and that's exactly what this is. Why are we not talking about the personal history of David Copperfield the way we talk about basically any other spring movie? This is a whimsical pastel Dickens novel turned period drama comedy. It has a similar aesthetic to the Emma 2020 film and the heart and enjoyment and characters of Little Women. It is wonderfully charming. It is so bright and sunshine filled. And don't even get me started on the cast. It stars Dev Patel. Period drama Dev Patel. He's such a soft boy and he's silly and it's adorable watching him fall in love. We need this man cast in Bridgerton like yesterday. We've also got Hugh Laurie and Tilda Swinton. This movie will make you laugh out loud. It's truly the definition of a feel-good film. Please allow me this one scene of Tilda Swinton roundhouse kicking a man off of a donkey to convince you.
Off my lawn! Off you go! It's a donkey-free zone! Move it!
And I rest my case. Definitely go watch it. This next one is my dad's favorite romance film, and he's not a romance guy. And that film is Somewhere in Time. This is one of the most dreamy, tragically romantic films I've ever seen. A movie where the love is so pure and wholesome and strong that a man goes into a room, shuts himself in there, and wills himself back in time to be with the woman of his dreams. He just wills himself back in time. And the couple, I don't think I've ever seen such a beautiful couple. It's set during the same year as the sinking of the Titanic, so 1912. The Edwardian fashion, the costuming on this movie should have won an Oscar. I don't know if it did, but it should have. It stars Christopher Reeve, known to many as Superman, Jane Seymour, and Christopher Plummer himself playing the part of the villain. The soundtrack is one of the most beautiful and moving I've ever seen in a film, and I'm not gonna say anything else about it. The ending is bittersweet, but that's okay. I love rom-coms for spring, and one of my favorite spring rom-coms is 10 Things I Hate About You, and this needs to be watched during springtime. It's at the end of the school year, there's prom. This is a Shakespeare-inspired rom-com retelling. And if you're a fan of the he falls first and pining and yearning and banter, you must watch this.
Bianca Stratford, she's a soft.
I burn, I pine, I perish.
It's all good and grand, but the best thing about this film is young Heath Ledger looking like the human embodiment of sunshine. The paintball scene at the end lives rent-free in my brain. I think I had some sort of moment when I watched this as a teenager of what I wanted to expect for romance in my life. Speaking of which, I cannot find a flaw in this movie. It is perfect. Heath Ledger singing, "You're just too good to be true, can't take my eyes off of you" in a stadium. They knew what they were doing with this movie. Yeah.
You're just too good to be true, can't take my eyes off of you.
Now, Marie Antoinette. This is a cinematic masterpiece. The feminine, dreamy aesthetic, the cinematography, the costumes, the setting at Versailles. Allow me to convince you with a handful of scenes here.
Oh, I must do this more often. I love the country.
What is the natural state? The state of nature from which it has been removed? Imagine wandering up and down the forest without industry, without speech, and without home.
We get to see Marie Antoinette's story told through a perspective of empathy and the naivete of girlhood. And I love that Sofia Coppola, the writer and director of this film, included little details about Marie Antoinette that some might not know to be true, like the "let them eat cake" quote being false. Kirsten Dunst wore over 60 costumes in this film, all handmade specifically for her in incredible detail. And at first it might seem like an all vibes, no substance film, but actually if you look deeper, that's where the beauty lies, because through the delicate details and the parties, we see how Marie is really using all of these things as distractions from her isolating loneliness of being this extremely young queen in a foreign country. And as the viewer, we see the world through her eyes, as she was just a girl who wasn't able to grasp the gravity of her queenship and the country she was supposed to be leading. Watch it for the incredible fashion, if for no other reason, and the music. The music in all of these films I'm recommending just happens to be so good. This next one is one that I just watched last week and I have not stopped thinking about it. It's one of those where the man doesn't only fall first, but he loves endlessly. I found myself giggling and kicking my feet. This movie is called The Magic of Ordinary Days. It stars Kerry Russell and what's his name? Skeet Ulrich, which I know from Scream. He plays a very different character in this film. It's set during World War II and it's about a woman who gets pregnant out of wedlock. She is very educated and successful, but her father pressures her into an arranged marriage with a lonely farmer who lives an hour away from anything. And she accepts this just because she, one, loves her father, and also it was just kind of what was expected of her class of women at the time. So she moves into this little farmhouse and she does not want to be there, right? Who would want to be there? The things that this man does for her to prove that he just wants to be the best husband is still doing everything he possibly can think of to give her a life that she might enjoy. We've been talking about yearning, right? The yearning that you see from this man on his face every time he looks at her. It stops my heart. I think this was a Hallmark movie, but for me it was a lot less cheesy than the Hallmark movies made currently that I've seen recently. It's set during almost an entire year, but the scenes that are set during spring and summer really stand out. There's butterflies and flowers and of course the farm and the birth of a new baby and starting a family that all felt very spring to me. So it's so wholesome, it's so sweet, you'll be kicking your feet. That rhymed. Would love to watch more TV shows. I just don't prioritize shows as much as I prioritize movies, but these are some that I revisit or that I have watched this year that have really made my days feel full of spring magic. The first one is Sanditon, which is an adaptation of a book that Jane Austen wrote right before she died, so she actually didn't get to finish it. I'm just gonna tell you one thing, and I feel like this is all you need to know. This is Jane Austen, Enemies to Lovers with Theo James, set on the beautiful coast of southern England. You'll feel heartbroken, but you'll love the journey. I really just want to stop it there. You don't need to know anymore. If you want to know more, I will put a slight synopsis description down in the description box. The next one is With Love, Megan, which is new on Netflix. It kind of feels like a modern version of Martha Stewart. And Megan also kind of makes me feel like I'm watching a YouTube video. She'll do multiple things in one video. She'll do baking, and she'll do a DIY project or a craft, or give you tips and tricks on how to make beeswax candles. It's incredibly cozy and feel good. The music is great. The cinematography is stunning. And I love that throughout showing us how to do something, we'll be out in the garden with the bees. I've been watching this in the evenings to wind down. It kind of gives me the same vibes as the Great British Baking Show, but mixed with Martha Stewart. And I know that a lot of people love to hate on Megan. I don't really have an opinion. I don't know her, and so I'm not going to judge her because I don't know her. But I know that the show makes me feel good and it inspires me to do things. In the first episode, she has a friend coming over and she makes him a basket of things that he can have on his bed when he arrives. It's chock full of good, homey, cozy spring inspiration. Highly recommend. I am guilty of this, but if you watched Bridgerton, but you didn't watch Queen Charlotte, I didn't do this the first year it came out because I was watching other things and I just thought, oh, I'll get to it eventually. And I never got to it until last year. Was this year. This year, I finally watched Queen Charlotte, and I actually think it's my favorite out of all the Bridgerton seasons. Usually Bridgerton follows the Bridgerton siblings, and each season is a different sibling's love story. But this is a whole separate story following the Queen and her romance with her husband, the King. Not only is it just incredible to look at, the aesthetics, the vibe, the colors, the pastels, the dresses, the balls. Charlotte herself was such an interesting character to get to know and to spend time with. I absolutely loved her. So if you've been wanting something more like Bridgerton or the Buccaneers, if you just want more of that and you're yearning for it and you have not seen Queen Charlotte, it's on Netflix. You're welcome. Now this next one isn't set specifically during spring, but the time period of it being set in New York in the late 50s, so many of the outfits are pastel and the music is upbeat, vintage, and it just has a happy overall feeling to it, which is why I gravitate towards watching this during spring, and that is The Marvelous Miss Maisel. Everything from her workout class, to her apartment, to her outfits, to the sun's shiny spring atmosphere of walking around New York City with her. It brings those vibes into my home and I love it, but I also need to keep seeing where the story is going because it's written so well. I don't want to say anything too much about the plot because a lot of stuff happens even from the first episode forward, and I don't want to give any spoilers. So if you like 1950s New York City, incredible music and fashion, check it out. It's so good. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about spring mindsets and lifestyle. This is where we get to create our own realities. I want to start with sharing some of the fun and whimsical things that I do. For me, one of the things is that everything kind of has a spirit to it. I whimsically imagine that it's all sentient, like in Beauty and the Beast. The teacup has a personality, right? They're all like living things. And obviously I know they're not truly living, but this is just the lens that I choose to view them through. I drop a shampoo bottle in the shower, I'll usually apologize and hope that it didn't hurt too bad when it fell. I dress up my books with book covers, and I've liked using the bookmarks as like jewelry because I think maybe they like looking pretty. The flowers I get every Friday, I thank them for providing their beauty for me to admire, because why not? You can call me crazy or delusional, but I don't care because my life is maybe more fun. Another part of my spring lifestyle is Elizabeth Bennet walks every day, non-negotiable. I like to go in the morning and the evening, but if I can't go both times. I usually do the morning, and I call it an Elizabeth Bennet walk because we all know she is very fond of walking, and I harness that energy because most of the time I do not want to go out and walk. It is still quite cold where we live, and I don't want to do it. But I always know when I get out there that I feel great, and it usually ends up being the best part of my day. Take photos of flowers. It's a tradition of mine to take photos of the first flowers of spring, and also if possible, cut some, bring them home and press them, and keep a flower journal of all the flowers I encounter throughout spring. And I love looking back at them and seeing my washi tape with the flower and the date and the location of it. A flower journal. I think we should all be keeping flower journals this spring. Another big lifestyle change I've made is my new rule of when the sun goes down, the phone goes down. No scrolling. Well, technically the phone doesn't go down. I can allow myself to research something or to respond to texts or anything, but no doom scrolling. And I have loved to indulge in hobbies of women that came before me. So sewing. I sewed this book cover by hand because my sewing machine is in storage, and it was the most lovely evening. I sat on the couch, I was listening to The Age of Innocence audiobook by Edith Wharton. I was sewing this, and it just felt like that. I don't know about you guys, but I have struggled with phone addiction and using it as a method of escapism. But I think it's so important to let ourselves, rather encourage ourselves to do things that make us happy instead of numbing ourselves with doom scrolling. You can learn the art of fan etiquette. That's also something I've been doing. Or baking family recipes, or recipes that are less popular that were known during a certain period of time. That's also really fun. Or if you don't want to start a new hobby, you can scroll instead of your phone on social media. You can scroll Zillow and look at dream houses and manifest those dream houses someday being yours. I think that's so important, to allow yourself to dream and not say, that would never happen to me, never. Because if you believe that, I mean, it really never will. I mean, we don't even have our own home, but I love to look at them. Now, coming back to what I was saying about creating your own reality, I saw a video about this recently, that reality isn't real. There is a subjective reality, but you and me, everyone we know, will never actually experience that reality, because each of our realities is our own. Like a dog, their reality is to only see a few colors. They don't see the same colors we see. That is their reality. Each of us has a different perspective based on our youth, based on our experiences, based on trauma. One person might walk into a party and the first things they notice are the upbeat music, the energy from the crowd of people, the friends that they're seeing. But someone else might walk into that party being paralyzed with social anxiety, only thinking about how many people they have to talk to before it would seem acceptable to go home, or the way that they feel overstimulated by the loud music and the crowd. These two people are at the exact same place but experiencing two completely different things. But the amazing thing about that is that you get to handcraft your own reality. That's not to say that things like anxiety that we can just wish away, because trust me, I know that is not the case. But I think there's a really cool freedom in knowing that whatever we do, it's just for us. Like, no one's really going to judge us, and we can do whatever we want to do to make ourselves happy. If I want to live like a woman in a period drama, I can wear dresses, and I can listen to classical music, and I can attend a ball. This just goes hand in hand with romanticizing your life. You can choose to do little things that may seem silly every day to make your reality a little bit more whimsical, a little bit more sparkly. Like I mentioned earlier about having a specific teacup for your morning tea or coffee, or using matches out of a cute little container, or making covers for your books because looking at it makes you happy. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is there are little things you can do to elevate your reality every day to be a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more sparkly, and you absolutely should do those things. It's not silly, it's not ridiculous, and it's not impractical, because when our reality is where we live, it's actually one of the most important things we can do for ourselves. So those are all of my recommendations, and I would love to hear in the comments if there are any little rituals or traditions that you guys do this time of year. I hope you guys are doing well. Let's end by Cheersing to a spring of new beginnings, nurturing our hearts, taking care of our inner children, and becoming friends with the sunshine. Cheers to that. Now get out of here, get on with your day, go live your best life and do something for yourself today. Promise me you will, okay? Do something just for yourself. Put the phone down, put the laundry down, even if it's just 5 minutes, just 5. You deserve it. I love you, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye, friends.